It's been a while since we've done a little time travel.
Yep.
In this episode, we're going to travel back to 1996, take a look at the albums, movies, and video games that moved us back in 1996. It's time to get the nostalgia blood flowing a little bit. What are we drinking
Today we're
today?
drinking X-Hops Gold by TeePublic Life. This is just a straightforward pale ale.
All right, you know the drill. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell icon so you never miss one of our bi-weekly uploads. And sit back, relax, pour yourself a beer if you care to, and let's travel back to 1996.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters, and you're watching Gaming Off the Grid.
Here we are. We're at a time where the minimum wage is $4.75.
Yeah, Red Bull just got invented. I'm 2 years old and I'm pounding that shit.
Yeah, and freaking computers, man. Household computers are kind of becoming a thing. Internet was kind of getting its way into households. I believe like PCs were costing like $1,500 to $2,000
Jeez
to get into the house, which that gets you a high-end model now, but that was just like getting you in the
that
door.
was getting you in the door.
Yeah.
This is the era of the PS1, the N64. That was like the hype train around this time.
Yep, a little Sega Saturn was in the mix.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But we're going to start off with our Desert Island, our look back with albums because we love music.
Huge music.
96, I think, was just a phenomenal year for music.
It was. I know, like, we're both Nirvana fans. That's when the Muddy Banks of Wishkah came out. A piecemealed live show, basically, of a bunch of different live recordings.
Which was a great thing. The top song in 96 was Don't Speak by No Doubt off the Tragic Kingdom album, which is No Doubt's a great band.
Who doesn't remember that album? Spiderwebs, Don't Speak. It was all over the place. It was on MTV. Down on the Upside by Soundgarden was out. I think that had Blow Up the Outside World.
Blow Up the Outside World, which is such a great track.
Nothing seems to kill me, no matter how hard I try.
What a great song. The score by Fugees is a great album. I actually have that on vinyl.
Yeah.
Speaking of vinyl, I also have Odelay by Beck on
That's
vinyl.
a great
which is a
record.
Fantastic record. Pinkerton by Weezer. I also have that on vinyl.
That's my favorite Weezer record. I don't know about you, but
it's a great album. It's so good.
Really good. All Eyes on Me from Tupac. We'll talk about Tupac a little bit later, but 96 was a big deal. That's when Tupac left us.
Yeah,
and,
that's when he got popped
seemed like
off.
he had the whole
he was like
world ahead of him.
He was in charge of it, and then pow.
Yep. Yeah, so kind of a big deal there. What's your favorite album from 96? I'm very interested to hear this.
See, this is the first time we usually write down our picks so we kind of know. This time we're just going from our memories. And you've already mentioned it, which is kind of weird. And it's the Nirvana, Muddy Banks, live from Wishkah. Dude, I know it technically doesn't count as an album, but it came out in 96 and it was on the Billboard charts. This live record is so good. I have it on, this is another one I have on vinyl. It's kind of chaotic. It's a mashup of a bunch of concerts.
The recording of Aneurysm on that record, I think, is the best version
Dude, there's
of that
a
song
lot
that exists.
There's a lot of versions of songs from that recording that are like my favorite versions of the songs.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so good. I listen to that record so often.
So as far as Nirvana albums that I owned, that was the first album I owned by them.
Really?
So I'd obviously heard more. I owned that, then Unplugged, then Nevermind, then In Utero,
so you went
then
kind of
Bleach.
backwards.
Yeah. But I mean, my cousin was in the mix and had all the CDs, so I was listening to the music. But that was like the first one that was mine.
I'm a huge Nirvana. I have them tattooed on my freaking leg. Like, what's your pick?
This was really tough for me. So I was really heavily leaning towards Golden Age by Cracker.
Oh, that's
I
great,
love that record.
album.
It's got one of my favorite songs of the year from 96, My Generation. I hate my generation.
That's how the album starts.
I offer no apologies.
That's a great
love that
song.
album. 100 Flower Power Maximum's on there.
Ooh.
Sweet Thistle Pie, the song Golden Age. Great record, but there's no way I couldn't pick As Good as Dead by Local H.
I knew as soon as I was looking up Local H songs, and I was like, oh, Battlefield on the Floor, 96, he was going to pick it. That was in consideration for my album of the year because that was Local H's second album, and what a powerhouse of an album. And I think that was the album that kind of put them on the map.
Yeah, so they had a Bag of Hammers before that, but this album was their mainstream, really shot in the arm. I think everybody really knows who Local H is as far as Bound for the Floor goes.
Yeah.
But this whole album is just incredible. One of their biggest live anthems is High Five and Motherfucker. But the songs that stand out to me are Nothing Special and Back in the Day.
Oh, there's just some emotion behind
that start of Nothing Special, just the and the one trick pony in a one horse town.
Dude, yes, I love that one.
I feel like the only freak in this town. What's wrong with me? I think anybody that was going through this time frame and you were kind of a weird kid, which I was, you kind of felt like that before. And there's just so much relatable content on As Good as Dead. And the song Eddie Vedder, the balls that it took to have a song called Eddie Vedder on your record, kind of just...
Yeah, and it was like, if I was Eddie Vedder, would you like me any better?
Yeah.
You know?
Nothing else about the song is about Eddie Vedder.
No, it's just that one.
Yeah, it's a timeless album. We just did a social media post recently for the 25th
The 25th
anniversary.
anniversary, which is so
Blows my
crazy.
mind. I mean, we've been blessed, man. We've opened for Local H.
Oh, and they're one of my
20 times, 15 times.
They're one of my favorite bands, and I love how they're still around and still putting out amazing music.
And I think we might be going around the U.S. this year to see a few of their live shows
because of the relaunch of Lifers, which came out in 2020, which I'm excited for.
But some great records. We could talk music all day. If you guys love hearing us talk music, let us know, because that could be a whole nother spin-off on the channel.
Just music. Because I think last time we did Earth Island, we talked about Alice in Chains for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it gets out of control. I mean, we've spent countless hours windshield time together, and when we're driving, we talk a little bit of video games and movies, but music's usually where it's at.
It's mostly music.
Yeah.
But we got to move on in
Movies.
this episode to movies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of amazing movies, I think, in 96, but they're all over the board. So you got a really good comedy, Black Sheep, Beavis and Butthead, Do America.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of great staple movies here that maybe don't go down as all-time classics.
No, but they're fun and enjoyable movies.
Yeah, like Biodome.
Ooh, Nutty Professor.
Yeah, who doesn't remember when those came out? I mean, I'm not saying this is a funny movie, but Twister? I mean, I like
that
the movie.
Okay, that movie is serious, but going back and watching it now, it is funny.
But at the time, who wasn't watching Twister, right?
And I remember when this came out, actually, maybe not when it actually came out, but I remember watching Space Jam.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
Michael Jordan, and they're making a new one now, which I don't feel the greatest about.
Don't either.
But the original, man, phenomenal.
It's just a weird, when we were going through kind of the movies of this era, it's kind of like, man, there's a lot of nostalgia plays here that aren't like all-time classics, but like Independence Day, Scream, Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire, show me the money. I
Yeah.
think that was like one of the biggest quotes from 96.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Lots of great freaking movies. What's your favorite movie in 96?
So speaking of Jerry Maguire, I think 96 and the 90s, Tom Cruise was on fire. And I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I remember I was obsessed with it in the 90s and early 2000s.
I'm very interested.
And that is the first Mission Impossible.
Okay.
Oh my.
Are you sure it was 96?
That's when Mission Impossible came out, was
all right.
96.
That kind of seems like older to me than I would have thought.
Dude, the intro music is so suspenseful. I had the soundtrack on cassette.
Nice.
I love like spy, like sneaky stuff, and this was so cool. And I love the whole series, and it started the whole series. It's just so cool. It's such a cool movie, you know?
This answer explains a lot about you.
Does it?
Yeah.
I
think
love
you
it.
were built to be a spy.
I love it, and I can't quite remember because I haven't seen it in a long time, but I think this is the movie. I think it's the first one. They kind of all blur together, which doesn't maybe say the greatest about the whole franchise, but I love them. I think the first one is where he drops down the wire. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
From the vet, and he's like this.
What was he like again?
Like this?
Nice.
And he does all of his own stunts, guys.
Yeah.
And he's a Scientologist.
Well, I mean, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. I think he's only like 5'4".
So you can do a lot of stunts when you're 5'4".
Yeah, because you're smaller.
Yeah.
You're closer to gravity.
Yeah.
You never seen me very upset.
Mission Impossible, phenomenal movie. I want to go back and watch it now. I'm curious to think what I would think about it, but from 96, Mission Impossible.
Boom.
Hands down.
Got it. That's a good one.
It's really good.
Yeah. For me, I got to go with, what'd you ask me, Steven? I got to go with Cable Guy.
Ooh, Cable Guy.
I love this movie. It was kind of a movie that I don't think, land the best for people coming off of a lot of what Jim Carrey had been doing up to that point. I love Cable Guy. I love everything about it. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? I love Everything about that movie. I love the soundtrack.
Yeah,
that
the soundtrack is incredible.
It's one of my favorite albums ever. And it's not just because I like the movie.
And it's a movie soundtrack.
Yeah, it's so good. You got Toadies on that soundtrack. You've got Cracker on that soundtrack, which I already mentioned Golden Age from Cracker. There's a deep cut on the Cable Guy soundtrack from Cracker that is it's just an amazing song.
You can only get it from that soundtrack.
Yeah,
which is really sweet.
It's just an amazing song. The Toady song on Attractive is amazing, and it only plays for a snippet when Jack Black pulls up and like drops him off. It's playing, or to pick him up. When he comes to pick him up, it's playing in his car, and that's all you can hear, and it's like at a distance.
It?
Yeah, it's just a fraction of a freaking nut hair.
I loved Jim Carrey, and I'm gonna be honest and say I think I've only seen this movie once.
It's just.
Should I go back and watch it?
You definitely should. I've got it on VHS, got it on DVD, I got it on Blu-ray. Whichever way you want to see it, you can see it.
Laserdisc.
I wish we need to get one of those in here.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, right on top of the TV. Right by Vanilla Ice up there.
There's one movie that I'm surprised neither one of us brought up that's a staple from '96. Happy Gilmore.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's a great.
That's
great.
I've seen that movie so many times because it's on TV all the time. I quote that movie all the time. I'm just shocked that you didn't bring that up and I didn't bring that up.
Well, we say all the time, and it makes no sense to anyone.
Yes.
But we always say, well, you're
the only wearing one shoe.
Yeah, we say, well, you're doing that because you only have one shoe on. And we say it to everything. Like, you'd be like, oh, dude, this beer's great. And I'm like, yeah, you just think that because you only have one shoe on. And Oliver, like, unless you're in our tight inner circle,
nobody
people look at us like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a good poll. That's a good poll. How did we forget to mention that?
Because I thought you were going to talk about it.
Well,
I don't know.
I thought you were going to talk about it. So see what happens.
We'll see what
when
happens.
you assume things, you make an ass out of you and me.
And Happy Gilmore,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
Which, that's a great freaking movie.
All right, so guess what our channel's about?
Movies and music?
No, video juegos. Some honorable mentions, and I don't know what your pick is, so these are some games that kind of stand out. You know, Mario 64 was hot,
Yep.
and there wasn't a lot of paint on the canvas yet. This was really early, so Super Nintendo was still releasing games at this point in time. For those of you who maybe do or don't remember, Super Mario RPG came out in '96.
Ooh, wow.
So people are going nuts. Donuts make you go nuts. 64 makes you go nuts, yeah. And all about the 64. And the Super Nintendo's dropping bangers. Donkey Kong Country 3, Super Mario RPG. It's like, why do I even need an N64? PS1 was doing its thing with Twisted Metal 2. Saturn was still romping and stomping. I think there was a Panzer game that came out this year.
I think the original House of the Dead game was remade from the arcade in '96 for the Saturn, which is really cool.
I must admit, I really respect your consistency.
What's your game from 1996?
My game is an N64 game, and I know that I shit on the N64 a lot, but I played this game. I didn't own a lot of games for the 64. I've talked about this game a lot. I was a huge Star Wars fan growing up. Shadows of the Empire. I loved this game when I was a kid. When you go back and play it now, it's kind of dated. It's kind of rough, but I love just how unique and original it was, because you don't play as a main guy from the movies. You walk around with a freaking gun, and it was so cool. I remember, like, just
loving it.
Yeah, just loving it. I had that, and then Pod Racer, which I don't think came out in '96. I could be wrong, but Shadows of the Empire, I was like, this is so amazing.
It was a must-play game when it came out.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's just so weird how quick things change. Because at the time, the graphics were like,
oh, it looks sweet. Because
God,
you'd walk in and you'd fight the ATTD or whatever it's called. I'm not a big Star Wars fan nowadays, but when I was a kid, I was. The big walker thing, and you had to shoot rockets at it. And I was like, this looks incredible.
I remember that game coming out. That was a big deal. For me, I got to go with an N64 game because I was just enamored with what was going on at the time. And I didn't own an N64 till the back end of 1998, but I had a friend named Justin who did. And a game that he had, so he had Mario 64, he had Pilot Wings, but he also had Mario Kart 64.
Is that your pick?
Yes.
A Mario Kart game.
And Super Mario Kart is still to this day one of my favorite Mario Karts ever made. Mario Kart 64 is not. It's not one of my favorite Mario Karts ever made. But for the time and how amazing I thought that game was, and it was at the time, I was just all about it, and the N64 was blowing my freaking mind. And I remember this is like, and not to really shout the game out because it's not from '96, but after, like later on when I went to stay at his house again, like a couple months later, NBA Hang Time came out.
Ooh.
on the 64, and I literally was like, this is unfreaking believable. The graphics blew me away. But, I remember him having a few different games, and the only game we would play would be Mario 64. And then his older brothers, which were like high school age, they'd like go out and do stuff. And so him and I'd be playing Mario Kart 64, and they'd come home at like 9, 10, 11-ish on a Saturday night, and they'd come down, and it was really fun because we'd be playing with these two way older kids.
And you were all...
And all of us
together.
were like together as one, and it was a lot of fun.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
really sweet. I don't think I played Mario Kart 64 until I was like a little bit older. And I do love going back and playing it because the power slide or the drift is so important.
The wiggling of the stick, yeah.
If you don't know how to do that, you will not.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I like the early Mario Kart games, because if you're good, you're good.
And there's like little nuggets or tricks that if you don't learn those...
So like in the new Mario Kart, I love the new Mario Karts, but anyone could potentially win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the old ones, you had to know how to do those special tricks, and there's a bar in our area called the Up Down, and they have Mario Kart 64 on a projector, and it's so much fun to just go and be like, okay, let's freaking play. Like,
looks like dog shit.
It does, especially on a projector.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to play. That's a great pick, and I'm surprised you picked Mario Kart.
Yeah, I just...
Out of all the games.
Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil 3 came out this year. I mean, there's a lot of great games, but I just... You know, I didn't dive into Res 3. I played 1 with a friend on PS1, and 2 with a friend on PS1, but Res 3, the first time I ever played Res 3 was on the GameCube.
Wow.
Because I knew that I had missed it, and it came out, and I was like, oh, this one probably looks better, so I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
And then Twisted Metal 2 came out on PS1. I love the Twisted Metal series, but I didn't have a PlayStation, so my neighbor that had a PlayStation, all he ever had was Twisted Metal 1. So some of these games, now I know they're great, but for what really moved me back then...
Especially back in the day, like, you only knew what you knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you missed out on things because you didn't have it or your neighbors didn't have it.
So I'm like, you know, depending on the year here, I'm 9-10 years old in 96. So, you know, I'm probably not surfing the web, looking stuff up. It was probably a couple years after this before my school started getting Game Pro magazines. So I'm just raw dogging it out there.
Well,
I'm just a little boy, raw dogging it.
Full disclosure, I did not do any of these things in 96. This was probably 2002 maybe.
Because you were a 1 or a 2 year old.
I was 2 years old in 96. So there was no way I was listening to these albums, watching these movies.
You might have been. Your mom's pretty cool. You might have been hearing some No Doubt. I bet you were hearing some No Doubt.
I was hearing some No Doubt, and I think that's why I got into Mission Impossible. Because I think she loved Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible. I think she loved Mission Impossible, and then I think she got the soundtrack and then gave it to me on cassette.
Did your mom love Mission Impossible or Tom Cruise? Hang on a second. Is your dad Tom Cruise?
Dad?
Everything's coming full circle right now.
I think my dad might be Tom Cruise.
That would explain a lot, dude. Your beard? That would explain a lot.
Yeah, I have one thing to say. Show me the money,
yeah,
okay?
Let's go. All right.
Speaking of that, let's talk about this beer by Toppling Goliath. This is the X Hops Gold Pale Ale. That's all it says.
Yeah.
It's just a pale ale.
Yeah. And it's a bomber. It was a limited release.
Wow. I'm flying through this beer.
It's just really good. It's a really straightforward IPA. Toppling Goliath, we've talked about this a few times in recent times, actually, how there's a commonality amongst their IPAs. This has a little bit of that, but not...
But it's mellowed.
Yeah, but
it's
not a lot.
Mellowed.
Yeah, this is
It has that very good taste, but not super hoppy.
Yeah.
It's when we were pouring it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
that looks
I don't know
super
how well you guys can tell how cloudy it
thick.
is. It looks like a glass of orange juice, yeah.
This beer is so good. I think a lot of people would like this beer.
I do too.
It's very smooth, juicy. God, I love Toppling Goliath. I love them so much.
It's a great beer. Fantastic brew. 96 was a pretty awesome year, with the exception of some things, you know. I mean,
there's a few
I think
things.
we were robbed of a lot of future creativity out of Tupac.
Yeah.
That's kind of the downer from the time frame. I wore this jersey for a reason. The Chicago Bulls were a pretty big deal, and Rodman was romping and stomping. I think he actually signed with the Bulls in 95, but man, 96 was a good run. There was a lot of humor becoming mainstream in this time frame. You know, like a lot of the standout movies being Black Sheep, you know, Biodome, Happy Gilmore, Nutty Professor.
Just
Nutty
weird.
Professor.
Just weird. I feel like just...
Did we talk about Scream?
We did. You mentioned it.
Okay, Scream.
It's. I feel like the 90s, just in particular, in 96, it was just a lot of weird things. People were just doing weird things. And then nowadays, people aren't.
Well, it's a great point. Like, things are so cookie cutter now. You know, for movie companies, they know if they make a big budget, big explosions, big fight scene superhero movie,
Oh, Marvel.
it's going to do good. You don't see a ton anymore of rolling the dice with a movie like Nutty Professor or doing something
Pushes the
you know, like
boundaries.
you just don't get a lot of movies right now because everybody's so PC and doesn't want to fucking offend anyone.
Yep.
You don't get a lot of biodomes anymore or black sheeps anymore. You don't get a lot of rated R comedies because nobody wants to touch that shit. So we really need to cherish the times before we were all so fucking woke and didn't want to offend anyone.
You're dropping a fucking bomb.
I mean, this is like this was some
It's like the golden age, which sucks because I wasn't alive
well
fully during it, but I can go back and appreciate it. Just because I wasn't born during it, I can still go back and appreciate it.
you
You know?
celebrated differences, you know.
Yeah.
All these things are different, you know. You had, you know, things at the top of the charts from No Doubt all the way to Tupac, and then, you know, video games were more willing to take risks. You know, now again, it just gets so cookie cutter. You get a regimented style, you know. So many remakes and rehashes and just annual releases, and you don't get
First-person
those
shooters.
outside the box stuff.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
To quote Frank Black, "I could stay here forever."
What a great quote.
I could stay here forever, but we can't. We got to go back to 2021 and make the most of it because there's a lot of good things happening. It's all not all doom and gloom. There's some shitty stuff, but it's honestly one of the better times to be on the fucking planet.
To be alive. you know?
Opportunity. There's opportunity for anybody who wants to reach out and grab it and not wallow in their sorrow of how good it used to be, because here we are. It's 2021. But thank you so much for coming back to 96 with us. It was a lot of fun walking through the streets.
It was
of
super
96.
cool. Super fun.
But all we can do from this point forward is move forward. And we hope to see you next time right here on... Chair just squeaked, but that's fine. Gaming off the grid.
It's been really fun.
Walking through the streets in 1996. We appreciate you guys joining us in this time travel. But it's about time to go back to the real times. We appreciate you turning...
That's your pick?
Yeah.
A Mario Kart game.
Yeah.
Wow.